Hey, what is up everybody? It's Animac here for Anime Uproar, and the final war in MHA has just reached a new massive milestone. The #1 pro hero suffered a major loss. Deku's classmates' lives are in direct danger, and Deku's impending one-for-all quirk awakening could be both the biggest blessing and the biggest curse for Deku. Horikoshi really isn't messing around anymore. Everything is at stake, and things will never be the same again after this insane war, so let's get into it. You guys know what to do if you enjoy our videos and you want to see more in the future. Leave a quick like and comment. It only takes a second, but it really helps with that YouTube algorithm. And of course, if you're new, or maybe you watch our videos but you just haven't taken the time to subscribe yet, remember that subscribing and hitting that notification bell is completely free, but it really helps me out a lot. Finally, this video will contain Boku no Hero manga spoilers, so please proceed with caution. You have been warned. The previous chapter ended on a huge cliffhanger. Shoto was declared the winner of his battle against Dabi, but then we saw a strange light shining from Dabi's chest, which made us think that something big was about to happen. Did Dabi have a dormant quirk that All For One had secretly embedded inside of him, kinda like what happened with Lady Nagant and that self-destruction quirk? Was Dabi about to get back into the fight with this mysterious new quirk, or was he about to explode and kill everyone around him? What was going to happen next? Well, we don't know because our boy Horikoshi decided to just move us straight into the fight between All For One and the top 2 pro heroes. We begin with Hawks explaining that All For One has a clear weakness. The mask that he is wearing is not just an accessory. It actually contains some sort of medical apparatus that is keeping All For One alive. Even back when he had escaped from Tartarus, All For One was carrying the life support machines that had been connected to him. This means that his body cannot survive on its own. So that mask is serving as a sort of life support apparatus, and he needs it to function properly. So it goes without saying that targeting the mask is a good combat strategy. If you can destroy the mask, or at least get the mask off of him, All For One's body will give out and the battle will be over. However, in order to separate All For One from his mask, the heroes will have to get close to him, and that presents a problem. All For One has the dangerous ability to steal quirks if he can touch you. So throwing a bunch of heroes at him could result in their quirks being stolen and then added to All For One's already overpowered arsenal. And that is a risk that the heroes simply cannot take. They are already understaffed as it is, so they can't afford to have a bunch of heroes losing their quirks to All For One. So the heroes made the tactical decision to attack All For One in a small group, with the 2 strongest pro heroes taking on the mission of defeating him. Endeavor and Hawks are hoping to combine Hawks' incredible speed with Endeavor's amazing firepower in order to overwhelm All For One and take out his mask. But this is All For One after all, so it won't be that easy, especially since Hawks' wings are not yet fully recovered. Hawks is using prosthetic wings in order to get anywhere close to his former speed, and this is obviously not ideal, so Hawks is not at 100%. Hawks tries throwing some flaming feathers in the direction of All For One's mask, but the villain manages to evade. Endeavor then attacks him with a massive burning fist attack, and while All For One is able to deflect most of it, some of the flaming impact is seeping through his defenses. But even as Endeavor is attacking him, All For One is busy waging psychological warfare. He asks Hawks what's wrong because he can tell that the top 2 pro heroes are having trouble coordinating their attacks. According to All For One, it is as if Endeavor is feeling a bit off today. All For One is clearly trying to bring uncertainty and doubt into the minds of the heroes in order to throw them off their strategy. Endeavor tells Hawks not to pay attention and not to let up because All For One's super regeneration is already struggling to keep up with all the damage that their attacks are doing. Meanwhile, All For One is still chirping away at Endeavor, telling him that all of these heroes and hero students are giving it their all and are fully focused on the battle, and yet Endeavor's mind seems to be somewhere else. He seems distracted. Does he maybe feel bad for his other son, Toya? Does he regret relying on Shoto to defeat Toya instead of taking on that responsibility himself? All For One is clearly trying to exacerbate all of Endeavor's deepest insecurities and regrets in order to reduce his effectiveness in battle. It is an incredibly devious move, but it is also something we've come to expect from All For One. Endeavor was doing a good job of ignoring All For One's taunting at first, but then All For One pulls out the big one. Looking right at Endeavor, All For One says, "Why do you think that little Toya's body was never found?" As a stunned look washes over Endeavor's face, the terrible truth dawns on him. Toya's body was never found because All For One and the villains found it first, and they are the ones who shaped Toya into the monster that he has become. This is only partially true, of course, because Toya ultimately rebelled against the villains and willingly chose his own path. But Endeavor doesn't know the whole story yet, and so his mind is haunted by all the terrible things that All For One and the villains must have done to his helpless son. Hawks tries to keep Endeavor calm, but it's too late. Endeavor has lost his cool, he rushes at All For One without thinking, and All For One uses this opportunity to rip off Endeavor's arm using his creepy monster hand thing. I don't know what kind of quirk this is, but this looks like something right out of Berserk, and it is extremely creepy. Hawks screams out Endeavor's name and tries to rush in to save him, but this puts both Hawks and the injured Endeavor in full range of All For One's blast attacks. As All For One prepares to finish them both off, Hawks and Endeavor are suddenly saved by Tokoyami and Jiro using Jiro's heartbeat wall. Jiro was able to get there in time by flying in on Tokoyami's back, and no, I will not be making any jokes about Jiro riding Tokoyami, okay guys? This is a sophisticated channel for philosophers. Anyway, Hawks is obviously grateful to be alive, but he also yells at the two students to stay away because the fight against All For One is way too dangerous for the two of them. But Tokoyami insists that he has what it takes to fight alongside his mentor, Hawks. After All For One jokingly calls the students side characters who only exist to get killed by the Demon Lord, thereby demonstrating the Demon Lord's true power, Jiro responds by saying that All For One should save those kinds of lines until after he has actually won the fight, and that is how this chapter ends. One of the biggest takeaways from this chapter is of course the fact that All For One managed to rip off Endeavor's right arm, which has the potential to have a major impact on the entire fight. By manipulating Endeavor into losing his cool and then using that moment to rip off his arm, All For One weakened Endeavor for the rest of the fight. Now Endeavor won't bleed out because he can just use his fire to cauterize his own wound, but it's safe to assume that he won't be as strong as he was before. That said, if Endeavor survives this fight, he'll just be able to get an advanced prosthetic like Miruko, so he'll be fine. In terms of Tokoyami and Jiro showing up and interfering in the fight, I think it's good that they did because if they hadn't, both Hawks and Endeavor might have been dead by now. Nevertheless, I also had a similar reaction to Hawks. It is extremely dangerous for hero students to be messing with All For One, and both of these guys just put themselves in serious risk. Let's be real, some students could be killed during this war. It would certainly not be unrealistic considering how strong the villains are and how high the stakes are. So, could All For One's words about the two of them just being side characters who will get killed by the Demon Lord amount to foreshadowing? Could Tokoyami or Jiro die in this fight? If we split Class 1A into tiers of importance in terms of the story, these two wouldn't be part of the top tiers in my opinion. Even if we take away Deku since he's the protagonist, Bakugo, Todoroki, and Ochako would be the next most important tier of students. I would also put Kirishima, Tsuyu, and Momo around there, probably one tier below Bakugo and the others. And then somewhere after that I would place Tokoyami and Jiro, although they would still be a tier above students like Ojiro, Koda, and Sato. So are these two important? Yes, and they're definitely important to Deku. But are they the most important characters in 1A? Definitely not. So could one of them die? Yes, it is possible, although I still think that if any students die, it's going to be students from Class 1B. I do think that the potential death of a classmate would be a massive, life-changing moment for Deku. And if that were to happen, Deku would enter the final battle more furious and more fierce than ever before. And speaking of Deku and the final battle, a few weeks ago I speculated what could happen if Deku's own quirk awakened in some unexpected way during the final battle. Like for example, if this was triggered by some tragedy, like potentially the death of All Might or maybe one of the classmates. I started thinking about this after the reveal that Shoto was able to awaken his own quirk in a way that completely changed how it is able to function. By combining the two different parts of his quirk into one, he was seemingly able to violate the laws of physics by creating what is essentially fiery ice. I got a lot of feedback about this, so I wanted to talk about it a bit more, because the loss of Endeavor's arm and the direct involvement of Deku's classmates in this dangerous fight against All For One really drive home the point that a major tragedy for the heroes could occur at any time. And if it does happen, it will surely break Deku because he couldn't be there to stop it. So, after seeing Shoto awakening the ability to fuse both distinct parts of his quirk into a single entity, an entity that seems to defy the laws of physics, I started wondering whether something similar could happen to Deku with One For All. What if a tragic event during this war triggers Deku's quirk awakening, and then all of the distinct quirks that he possesses suddenly fuse into a single ability, a quirk singularity? If Dr. Uchiko's theories about quirk singularity are correct, and they do appear to be, then upon achieving One For All quirk singularity, Deku could lose control of his body and essentially go berserk. Especially if this ultimate power-up comes as a result of some emotional trauma, like the death of someone close to him. Shigaraki's own body has already been adapting to the challenges of quirk singularity, and his body is now able to literally mutate in order to accommodate many different quirks. For example, we've recently seen his new ability to generate thousands of fingers from his body. And this ability doesn't come from a quirk, but from his body itself. However, Shigaraki is able to do this because his body was heavily modified by Ujiko's procedures. Deku's body does not have those alterations, so if the quirks of One For All were to suddenly combine and attain quirk singularity, Deku's body would have to adapt to all of this power on his own. We already know that One For All is a stockpiling quirk that has been getting stronger from generation to generation, and its core has been expanding as well. Deku is the first One For All user who can actually access the quirk factors of all the previous users in order to actually use their quirks. And this is also an indication that One For All has been evolving rapidly in recent years. The big question is, what would a One For All awakening look like? What would this quirk singularity mean for Deku and his power? I believe that just like the two distinct aspects of Shoto's quirk merged into one, all the different quirks that Deku possesses as part of One For All will also merge into a single quirk. So he will no longer need to make the conscious decision to use Fa-Jin or Float or Black Whip. He will suddenly gain a new form that allows him to seamlessly use all of them together without even thinking about it, because all of them will become a single integral part of this new insane form. This new form will make Deku both faster and stronger, but it will also likely challenge his ability to actually control his body. His body, which hasn't received treatment from Ujiko, will be pushed to its limit, and he may even lose control temporarily and just go berserk like the Hulk. I imagine that just like Shigaraki's body began to mutate once it started adapting to the quirk singularity, Deku's body will also start mutating, although not in the same way as Shigaraki with all those creepy fingers. Deku's mutation could go in a variety of directions, but in my mind, I imagine Deku becoming buff like the Hulk, but with red skin as an indicator of his surging power and righteous rage. This is just my own imagination though, Deku becoming like an out-of-control Red Hulk. And I'm sure that none of you guys who are watching this video are going to start trolling anime onlys by saying things like, oh man, Red Deku is so overpowered. Just wait until you see Red Deku get animated, and so on. You guys would never do that, I'm sure. To me personally, it just makes sense for all of the different parts of One For All to one day unite into a single overpowered form, like the two sides of Shoto's quirk uniting into one. Although One For All is even more powerful and has more quirks to work with, so we're probably gonna see Shoto's awakening times 10 with Deku. And this One For All quirk singularity will end up clashing with Shigaraki's All For One quirk singularity in the ultimate final battle of the series. Do you guys agree with me? Will Deku obtain an awakened final form as all the One For All quirks merge into one? And will this form turn out to be crucial for defeating Shigaraki? If so, what do you think will trigger this transformation? Will it just happen organically, or will it be triggered by some emotional tragedy, like the death of a character who is close to Deku? Could Tokoyami, Jiro, or another hero student die during this arc, or maybe an important hero like Endeavor or All Might? Finally, is Red Deku stronger than Goku? Let me know down below. If you guys enjoyed this video, leave a quick like and comment. It only takes a second, but it helps me out with that YouTube algorithm. And of course, if you're new to Anime Uproar, or maybe you watch our videos but you just haven't taken the time to subscribe yet, do me a quick favor and make this the video that you subscribe and hit that notification bell to turn on all notifications. It is a completely free way to directly support the channel in a real way right now. You can also hit me up on Twitter and Instagram at Anime Uproar. I want to give a big thank you to all of our Anime Uproar patrons for making videos like this one possible. Special thank you to Kyle Salisbury. This man is an absolute mad lad and a disciple of Lord Twigo himself. And I can't forget all of our The One tier patrons, the ones who rise above all other clans, including Alpha Sigma, Pate Hefa, the Red-Haired Fox, Hinokami and Water, the Toasted Chi, Corey McGowan, the Fallen Chosen, Orihime Wukong, Dante Tennell, and Baked Buddhist. Finally, thank you also to our Pro Hero tier patrons, including the one and only Gilgamesh, Angel Cruz, Alicia Octor, Bunny Parks, Fatboy Games, Kaido Might Be a Duck, Ali Vania, and Anime S Code M. If you guys enjoy our videos and you feel that they provide value to you, consider supporting us on Patreon. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, see ya, Space Cowboys!